Famous writer Scott Synder, who wrote stories like Batman 52 and Dark Knight Death Metal, has his own imprint now called Jackett Press, which titles such as Nocturna, We Have Demons, and now his students of this substack is putting out a project called the Cloak Room. And today on the Green Box, we'll be interviewing them students and talk about their Kickstarter they got now and everything like that. Specks, take it away.
All right, welcome back to the hood. This is Chill in the Green Box with Specks, Thompson, and the View. And like always, my co-host not here because this is a special episode. In this first episode, I have multiple guests and a returning guest as well. I have Jerry back on the show, and he brought some friends along with him this time.
How you doing, buddy?
Good. We got one. He's kind of late, I guess traffic, but we are Chill in the Green Box, so he can pull up whenever. So just go around and introduce yourself, and when he can introduce himself too. So go ahead.
Jerry, me? Okay, I'm Veronica. I'm a co-editor on Cloak Room. What else is there to say about me? I don't know. I'm in Canada.
That's all we need to know.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's it.
I'm Jerry. I'm co-editor on the Cloak Room, and I'm the returning guest. I was here last year to talk about Cicada Samurai.
All right, cool. All right, so typically I have a different format how I operate the show, but it's gonna be a little bit shorter show this time around, just to highlight what y'all got going on because it's very interesting to me that y'all doing it. So, in my brain, if I remember before I was talking to Jerry about it, this is from a Substack, right?
So
that's the genesis. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
so y'all was all together as one unit.
So it's Scott Snyder's Substack, and he has this Substack that's an offshoot of his publishing company and sort of the company under which he makes all of his comics. It's called Best Jackett, and so Best Jackett Press, and then the Substack is called Our Best Jackett, and we're all subscribers to it. And through the Substack, he does a writing class, and it's sort of like Scott and other people from the industry talking about the process and their creative process and the business and all that kind of stuff. And all the people who take the class are, aspiring creators or editors or publishers or just super fans and want to listen to him talk about telling stories and writing stories. And the book that we published is an offshoot of that. And so it's got Scott's blessing, which is why we can put his name on the cover, help sell copies. But it is a collection of short stories written and created by, in various ways, people in that writing 101 class. So, there were 2 volumes before that were called Tales from the Cloak Room, and this is now an ongoing series. So every 3 months there'll be a new issue of the Cloak Room with, 5, 6, 7 new short stories from people in the class.
No way. So Veronica, I know Jerry, he's doing a couple books and his background, but you being the co-editor, this is your first time editing a book, or you been editing books beforehand?
I did some work with a Canadian publisher beforehand. Got a little experience that way, but this is the first time I'm putting this much work into it and proud enough to put my name on it and, involved enough to say this is something that I can call ours, have a great partner and, make the calls and do the full-time thing. And so, yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Are you a writer as well?
I'm a writer who, like a lot of writers, doesn't write that often.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I have the same problem.
Yeah. Well, no, you don't. You're pretty. Like, he's always got new stories going. I always have ideas going, but it takes me a year to get them down onto paper. But no, I started taking the class because of interest in writing, and then as it went along, I think that I was more attracted to the general community aspect of it. Hey, Lance is coming in now.
Yeah, good timing.
Yeah, the community.
Community, and here's the community coming in to say hi.
Welcome, Lance. You're here now. Everybody else, they introduce themselves and what they do and who they are. You can go ahead and do that for yourself.
So my name's Lance Stanford. I am a stay-at-home dad with aspirations of being a writer also. I'm in the middle of nowhere, Texas, and yeah, that's what I do. I read comics and watch my kids read comics.
Okay. What got you to join the Substack?
So actually, I don't think Veronica or Jerry know this story. I actually catch a lot of heat in the Discord because I wasn't a huge fan of Scott Snyder's 52 stuff. I know. Yeah. I mean, I'm a fan of his.
Can we mute him? Can I get the power to mute him?
I got it right now.
Mute him. Shut him down.
He's. I respect him as a storyteller. You know, he tells great stories, and the way he not only architects them, but because there's people. You got people like George Lucas who can storyboard but can't execute, and got people who can do the opposite. But Scott's one of those people that can do both, and I respect the heck out of that. And plus, there's not a lot of places to learn comic writing from comic writers. So all that kind of added up, and I wanted to join, and it's been amazing since. And I've gone back and reread with fresh eyes, and I do appreciate this stuff now. But yeah, so that's kind of what got me into the class.
Now, were you a writer beforehand?
Yes. Well, I like to think I was. Yeah, I've written a few short films, some plays, a few kids books, a novella, some kids chapter books, and I have some comic books that I've written outside of these anthologies and things.
Okay, cool.
Lance has some books that are available you can buy them online.
Okay.
Yes.
So that sounds like a writer to me. I mean, you're a writer.
Absolutely. Yeah. He's being shy.
So going to the Substack, did y'all know y'all was going to eventually do a project?
I honestly didn't even know it existed. I joined about probably a year after Scott started doing the class. The first volume had already been done. The second volume was already in the works, and I was not. A lot of the communication between the students that's direct is through the Discord, and I'm old enough that the idea of another chat app or another social media thing to learn, I went cross-eyed when Twitter first came out. That's how old I am, So when they were like, no, Discord, it's you got to you start your own server. I was like, I'm out. I checked right out. And so I wasn't paying attention. And then the second volume of this book came out. Here's actually a hard copy. The second volume showed up on Kickstarter. And so, I supported it. I got a copy in the mail, and then I joined the Discord. And basically the group of people who put together the first volume only did one volume. They had no intention of doing anything after that. Then a different group of people did the second volume. So I got the idea, well, I just launched my own little publishing company. Why don't I look into doing, to see if I could pick up the mantle on this? And, we were connected, Veronica and I were connected by the group who did volume 2 because she had reached out with the same idea. So it was the two of us. We talked to a few other people who, were helping a little bit, and then they got busy doing other stuff, or they weren't really available right away. But I didn't know that we were going to do this until we started doing it. And then I didn't know I was going to have a partner until we spoke for the first time. And what's nice is I think Veronica and I are very different people. And we work well together though, because we complement one another. She's organized in ways that I'm not. She thinks about things that I don't. And, so I think we're a good team. And we're kind of practicing doing something you don't get to do when you're alone writing. It's the editing is a different process. It's just a totally different skill set.
Different muscle. Jerry's very, he's a lot nicer than I am. I tend to be really critical. And then as soon as I actually realize the person's a human and I meet them, I'm like, oh no, I love it so much. It's so good. But before that, I'm like, fuck, it sucks. So sorry, can we swear on this podcast?
Yeah, you can.
I was,
Too late now.
Too late now. Yeah.
No, I have never said that about something, but I think that I come at things a little bit more critically, and then Jerry is let's give them, and then I think there's things that Jerry you're not a fan of sometimes, and then I see something in it that I like, and you're like, oh yeah, I didn't really think about it like that. So there's stuff that there's stories that I, you know, it might not have been interested in developing that like Jerry's convinced me, and now there's stories that I really love, or like, you know, there's different stuff that we've learned from going from pitching, like reading pitches to reading scripts to seeing stuff on the page, and that process really helps you see an idea that you might not like, maybe it doesn't appeal to me at the beginning from a tagline or something like that, but then, you know, if we follow up and we read the script, it's like, actually, you know, this is genius, I love this has so much potential, and if we get this artist on it, it can just like explode into something that, you know, you never really, you could have missed easily. Like there's a lot of stories out there that you might miss, and this experience has been great for that.
I think Veronica and I should cover our ears now, and then Lance should talk about if he actually likes working with us.
I mean, like they'll both give you the rope, but then they'll both let you hang yourself with it, so it's okay. Just different ropes, so you know it works. No, it's so I came to the class a little bit late, missed out on the submissions for the first volume, but supported on Kickstarter. When the talks for the second volume came around, I pitched the story. It made it in there. It's called Hearts on My Sleeve. I did with my artist Daniel Covell. And then Jerry and Veronica started talking about this third volume. And I was like, heck yeah, you know, why not? I'm very much a spaghetti on the wall type person. Like, I'm going to pitch, and then what sticks. And they liked it. And a little behind the scenes, I was actually supposed to be in the next one, but there was an artist needed some more time and things, and so I got bumped up to this one. So that's how I'm here, and it's been really cool. You know, self-publishing stuff. I'm my own editor, and I'm my own worst boss. So that's, you know, I'm horrible with like deadlines, like artist slide and everything. And so with the first, I guess with the second volume, the first one I was in, the Logan and that team that edited that, you know, they took a different approach because it was a larger book, and the approach y'all are taking with it being possibly, hopefully, quarterly thing. You know, it's really interesting to see the editorial side of it and how y'all come at us. And I think that's something like, as great as the class is, you know, when we had Will in there for editing stuff, you know, but actually being edited, actually talking to an editor is as valuable, I would say, as almost anything else I've learned in Scott's actual class. So, I mean, I do want to say a big thank you to y'all for, you know, doing that, taking time and putting this together and stuff, because it's been eye-opening. I'm not going to say I've laid in bed crying at night after comments y'all said, but, you know, it's been a whole experience, a whole lot of fun.
Okay.
Thank you, man.
Going to you, Lance. You said a couple things I want to touch on. First, you just spoke about the editing process. So the first books you was a part of, it's the same little substack group.
Yes.
You didn't have no involvement with the editor, or it was like a different process?
Yeah, I wondered that too.
Yeah. So the way that one worked, it was still kind of the same. You know, whereas I feel I've had an artist for both projects, but I think this one, y'all, if again, I'm from Texas, I'm going to say y'all a lot.
I'm Georgia. I'm in Georgia, so you know, it's all right.
I'm for it.
Y'all were helping artists and writers connect and create together. Whereas there was a little bit of that in the volume 2. The thing with the volume 2, I thought that was really neat was they like broke it up into teams almost. Like there were 3 editors on that, and it may not have been this way. This is just how it seemed from a create. Is like, you know, they kind of gave each one their own creators to work with, which is kind of, you know, if you look at the big 2, you know, like you have a Superman editor, a Batman editor, an X-Men editor.
There were 18 stories we should add too. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was a big book.
And I think that was why. That's why we changed. That's why when I first started talking about this is exactly like I heard exactly what Lance is talking about from the editors, you know, where they were saying it was kind of like they're all still in school. They all are. They have day jobs. They're all very busy and they're doing other stuff. No one's making like a bunch of money on this. But so it's like a Herculean task to get 18 different creative teams on one page to hit some deadlines and print a book.
Now,
none of the editors from Volume 1 came back from Volume 2.
Right. And then none of the editors from Volume 2 wanted to keep going for Volume 3. Like it's a Herculean, it's a very like time consuming thing. And I was like, I thought let's make it a quarterly thing and it'll be more manageable, but it'll also be like an ongoing process and it'll allow us to plan. Like if someone pitches us a story and they don't have an artist or they don't have any character designs, or even if the story, there's like a little something there that we think is really cool that we want to talk about, but it's not fleshed out yet. We've gotten pitches that are just, here's some prose there's not even a story in here yet, but it's a world I'm working on, all the way up to here's my finished comic story, And so we can kind of think to ourselves, this story needs some time. This writer takes a long time to work. This artist is going to take, this one works faster than this one. We can kind of plan 6 months, 9 months in advance. Like we know who's going to be in the second volume. A lot of those comics are already, in process. Lance was in process for the second issue, I should say, not volume. And then, we've already got a list of who's in 3 and possibly who's in 4. So, it's great. We can plan and we can it can be like on a low simmer constantly instead of 3 months of everybody losing their mind.
And what I know about editing, everything I know is from a single issue book or I guess a full volume. But since it's an anthology project for y'all, so is it an overarching theme y'all go for these stories, or how does it work?
So I think the theme that we're going for is just that it is the community kind of built around wanting to learn writing from Scott. So the theme is Scott. Like it was called the Cloak Room. The first two volumes, Tales from the Cloak Room, had a theme of like a jacket in it, and we kind of wanted to focus on. I went back. I reread like all of Scott's posts from 3 years ago when he started the whole thing, and it's called Our Best Jacket because his kids' names are Jack and Emmett. I think that's what their names are. So there's 2 T's, and it's really his kind of family saying of like, when you put on your best jacket, it's like putting on your best self, like putting on, going out into the world and giving like putting in everything you can. It's doing your best. You're putting on your best jacket, your best face for the world, for a community, for the people around you, for yourself, for art, for everything. So that's the theme really, is the Cloak Room is all of these people who really just are putting something out there that is something that they're proud of and that is positive and is building something with other people, and is showing like, hey, like I've never been published before maybe, or I've only been published like, a couple times, and I'm not a known name or anything, but I'm going to put myself out there and try my best to tell a story in my way and show my point of view, and hopefully people like it and see that and say, hey, like I can write a story too.
Okay.
I do like the new theme or motif, I guess, almost, because like Veronica was saying, in the first 2, it was jacket themed, and come to find out, it's like you just had to mention a jacket or have a jacket in the background or something. Old Man Lance took it very literal, and my story's literally about a jacket. So having, being able to kind of switch it up and just like my story in this one,
beautiful story about a jacket. Like it was a wonderful story. I really loved it. Yeah.
Thanks. Like that means a lot. Like, cause y'all
so different from what you wrote for this issue, but yeah.
He got
this
range.
issue was,
yeah.
I watch a lot of movies, especially this week. No, I like my story in this one is called Suicide by Zombie, and it's a horror comedy, like a kind of a Shaun of the Dead, if that's your thing. But much like Shaun of the Dead, there are some heavy undertones and stuff. It's about a guy who, at the end of the world, he's alone. His dog's dead. He just wants to be done, and he even sees that even zombies have community, so he wants to join that community, and he's trying to get the zombies to eat him. and they won't. And there's a few comedic bits in there where he's like putting hot sauce on himself and like trying to tan himself so he's like extra crispy and all this stuff. But it's still trying to deal with like loneliness and stuff, but through a comedic lens, kind of.
Yeah.
Okay. And in the group, I've been in an anthology before, and I had to pick my own artist and then go from there. But since you got a bigger name on your book, are there artists / writers in your group, or y'all still had to find other artists to compensate for the writers?
Both.
It was both.
Yeah, there were some people who came to us with finished pages, already lettered and done, and we had few notes on them. But there are other people who came to it like, hey, I don't know any, like, just because, you shouldn't be turned away from being in an anthology because you don't know an artist, you can't find an artist, or maybe you can't afford an artist. So we wanted that to be something that we considered. Like, it's more about the story. It's about helping, like, our job is to help writers tell the best version of their story, to have a book that they can hold in their hands and look at and say, like, hey, there's nothing in this I would change. Like, this is exactly as I wanted it to be. I would not change a thing. And so it's been a bit of a process of, sometimes people have an artist that they are somewhat familiar with, and sometimes people have like an obscure, like, kind of like, there was somebody who it was really hard to find an artist for because he was like, I have a perfect vision of this story in my mind. It's a cartoony kind of dark manga look, but I don't really read manga. I just want like really expressive faces. And we were like, I don't know what you're looking for, dude. So we've been on a hunt for that. And I think that we finally found someone. But there have been other people like Jerry knows some artists that he's worked with, like Nick Justice, who did art for a story called Surprisal of the Fittest. It's a dinosaur interdimensional story. And yeah, then there's people who are doing their own work, which sometimes that's actually why Lance is in this issue and not the next one, is can have 2 zombie stories in a 7-story anthology. So there was an artist who maybe was rushing things, and so we said, hey, slow down, like let's have pages that you're really confident in, and work in the style that you're most confident in. If it takes longer, we can wait. Like, it's worth it, so you have a story you're proud of. So yeah, there's a mix of people doing their own art.
Yeah, the people in the class, like there are colorists and letterers and artists and writers and people who do all the things in the class. There's a guy named Matt Salisbury who did our B cover. He also did the art in the story that follows Lance's story in Volume 2. And he is writing and drawing a story for us for the 2nd issue of the Cloak Room. So there's lots of people in the class that are really like multi-talented. And just pairing them up with the right person, if they need a person to work with, has been a lot of fun, and kind of again, like a muscle you don't really get to exercise if you're always working with the same person. If you're writing your own story, you already have an artist. You don't really need to keep on looking for someone who can get on the same page with you, share a vision, bring something you're not anticipating to the work without kind of, running over the thing that you already had in your head.
And I think that's something really cool that y'all are doing, because as somebody, like I said, I have a few comics and stuff out, and I'm working with Daniel, who I did the last one, because, I found somebody who is affordable, reliable, can listen and understand, like, who I vibe with, and that in and of itself is a huge task. And the fact that y'all are doing that is amazing, because I've found artists that I want to work with and can't work with for various, so that I think of all the hats that you wear as an editor, that I think is the most impressive to me. Matching people, like, matchmaking is the hardest thing in the world. So yeah.
It's certainly like the hardest one, and for some reason, it's one of the things that we both were like, we want to do this. We want to we want to do this thing, and we want to make it as hard as possible. We want to have the full editor experience. Like we want to know what it's like to actually have the whole thing on your shoulders, and kind of the scheduling and the everything from like what the format of the files coming in is, to choosing which artists that we want to spend money on to do cover work and things like that. Like we wanted that whole experience. So, as much as everybody in the class gets to write a story and get it published and has that opportunity to pitch and kind of go through that, it's just as practice for when they do it at a bigger publisher later, or with people that aren't in the class and aren't like friendly and on their side. It's kind of like a dry run for them. It's the same thing for us. Like we're both, I've always said as a writer, I'm a better editor. I prefer to have like a bunch of stuff in front of me that I can, ask questions about and move around, and kind of, I like to work existing pieces into something. I just have always like enjoyed that more in the process. Like if you put me in front of a computer and there's a blank page, I will stare at it for days. But if you walk me into a thing that you're doing and it's a disaster and you can't get your head into it anymore, I'll sit with you for hours and we'll ask questions and we'll figure out the best way to tell your story. I've always kind of enjoyed that.
It's my favorite too.
Yeah. And it's not until recently that I realized that's a whole job. I could just be doing that. Like I don't have to sit here with a blank page and beat myself up for having like writer's block or not being able to write the first outline because I don't know what the first sentence is, things like that, like all that kind of classic writer stuff. I can help other people work through that because I kind of gravitate towards that more naturally anyway. So
it goes back to the whole community thing too. Like it can be lonely being a writer and you're just sitting there by yourself, like in a void, and same thing with artists. Like they're just drawing pages for so long and there's nobody, going at it with them. So, it's not 1940 anymore where you're handing pages to somebody in the room next to you and there's no bullpen. So
then they're chomping on a cigar and going like, nah, go back, draw it again. See?
Yeah.
Like the way everyone talked in the 40s,
Yeah.
What is this garbage?
But you said the previous books were like 18 stories. This one is about, I think, 7 stories. So who got cut off the bacon for selection wise this, and how you got to pick like who goes or who stays?
Well, so when we told everyone in the class that we wanted to do this, we got 71 submissions by the deadline for the first issue, and it was from 51 different creators. And so we kind of went through, and the first thing we did was make a list of our just favorite ideas, like off the top, and then we made a different list of here are the ones that are closest to complete, or that we feel like could happen quickly enough to make it into the first issue without us, wanting to kill ourselves. And so we kind of matched that list up, and whatever, we probably had like 10 stories that were in that category, and then we split them up among the first two. Our intention was only to have like 30 something pages in each.
Yeah.
And then we were like 7. Let's do it just big enough that we have to do like a perfect bound trade paperback size thing. Let's just write whatever that line is. Let's be right on the more expensive side of that line. Let's do that.
Exactly.
Well, and they didn't put any it wasn't. It has to be 6 pages. Y'all kind of took a variety of pitches too.
Yeah, we said 2 to 10, I think, originally, and I think that we expected more short. Like we've got a couple 4-pagers, but the majority of them are 8 to 10, and I think that's because the previous 2 volumes had 8 as the page count, right? Which I think that makes sense because like then you can divide everything equally between if everybody has the same number of pages, and profit sharing is like the same. It's a lot simpler, but that might not fit the story. Like there's been some stories where I'm like, add a page. Like this doesn't need to end here. You can take your time and flesh it out. And
we've done that a bunch. We've done that a bunch where we've been like, just make it. I think it needs a pay. I think it needs to breathe a little here. Like you're rushing to you're telling a lot of story in this like 4 pages. Like make it 6. It feels a lot better,
And I mean, and that's cool that y'all are letting us do that because I know, Jerry, you were talking about when you started a blank screen. See, I have no problem like getting started, but then it's like, okay, where do I stop? Like, do
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
even like in my story here, because for those people listening that don't know, like, there's a tier in Scott's Substack that you can do one-on-ones, like once a month with him and stuff. And so I was kind of pitching this story to him, and we're going over it, and he was like, "Well, you could take this out and make it shorter and be okay." He's like, "Or you can add this in, and it's like a whole series, and you could do this, you know." And
Yeah.
that was a challenge. I mean, I hate to say challenge because that makes it seem like it wasn't fun or it was difficult, but you know, it was a thing that, in talking with y'all, is like, okay, you know, where do we end this? And if we end it here, does that mean the story's done, or does that mean? And from seeing some of the other artwork and hearing, you know, talking to some of the other creators, I think there's a neat balance of. I mean, all the stories are self-contained, just but it seems like mine's not the only one that's like, well, you know, if when volume 10 rolls around, if we want to do a part 2, like, and
Totally.
when y'all do that, was that another thing y'all were kind of looking at, like, you know, wanting them all to be close-ended versus, you know, ending in certain spots? Like, how did y'all approach that?
We wanted them all to be self-contained, but with, you know, if there's opening for something down the line, like exactly what you're saying, there are a lot of stories where, you know, it has it could end here, or it could be something huge, which I think Scott did a whole class where he kind of talked about his 3-act structure, what to do if you're trimming it down. And where to, you know, you're starting off in those 3 arcs. I think he said, like, kind of start in the middle and go to the end, but you could also move it, and so yeah, there's different ways to go about it. But I mean, I think it's so much harder to write something that has an ending like that, or that has an ending in comics. It's tricky. It's like, how do you tell a story that keeps people interested, that has good characters, that has emotion, that has everything that you want in a comic, but it could leave you satisfied at the same time, or it could make you want to buy the next one. And I think that your story is great. It does both. Like, I don't know where your story goes in chapter 2, you know, but I love where it ended, and it's kind of great because it's like, yeah, I have no idea where you're going to take that, but there's definitely somewhere it can go. There is something that could open up from there. So that's perfect for us.
But I think that goes to a concept. You think about like the old like 80s cartoon TV shows, like
Yeah.
typically they was all sporadic and random, but you can watch it and you know you could be satisfied. At the same time, like, I would tune in tomorrow or next week for a new episode because you don't know what's going on. Like Voltron, you know, I like watching Voltron back in the day, but now being grown, trying to, you know, piece it together. The episodes we watched was all random and out of place because one minute the guy with a black outfit driving a black lion, then like next episode the guy with a red outfit driving a black lion. You're like, what happened? But the episode leaves you satisfied because it has an ending. So you don't
Well, it's like
and comics used to be like that too. Like, they used to be, you know, self-contained. You know, not necessarily serialized, but like, you know, have a little asterisk, like, see issue 172 for the reason why, you know, Peter's working here, or, you know, whatever. But could stand on their own because, like, you have readers who are going off their allowance. Like, so they might have enough for a comic one week, and then the next week they might want an ice cream instead.
Well, and Scott, a lot of creators have said, you know, every comic is somebody's first, you know, so it's hard to, I think, and this is we can do a whole nother show on this, you know, I think some books have gotten away from that, but I think that is something that's cool about what y'all are doing, what we're doing with an anthology is, if you don't read Tales from the Cloak Room 1 and 2, you're not missing anything, you know. I think that's what's really, really cool about anthologies. You know, you don't have to read 600 issues of X-Men to know that Adam X may or may not be Cyclops' brother, blah, 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 blah. You know, no. I know.
Spoiler alert!
Spoiler.
Come on, Lance. Come on.
You're missing so much in X-Men right now, dude.
I'm so far behind.
Oh my god,
but,
I can't even. Yeah.
But I think that's like what you're saying. It's what's cool is as a kid or adult, you can pick up a comic book and read it. You can pick up these books and read them and enjoy them. And if you're a jerk and don't pick up the next one, fine. But then you come around to the next one, you're right there, and it's still just as enjoyable. It's the same thing. My kid reads the Batman Scooby-Doo book, which is one of the best books on shelves right now. Like, I'm not gonna lie, it's so good. But it's almost anthologies like, because each issue is its own self-contained story, and it has to have Batman, it has to have Scooby-Doo in it, and that's it. And I think that's a really classic approach to comics, and I think that's a reason you got 71 submissions. And I mean, what was the frame? The time frame was only a couple of weeks, right? It wasn't very long. I felt like
I think it was a month.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're still open for submissions. Like we're still taking them. We will probably put out another, request for submissions soon. But it was hard because like it's not common anymore. I tried to, I went in a few comic book shops and went to different store. I was looking for anthologies or examples of one-offs. Like where's a good collection of just one-shot self-contained stories, and there aren't many on the shelves. And I don't know if that's just because of it's a more popular thing for crowdfunding, and so they're not in traditional stores. They're not in your local comic shop, or if it's just like I don't know what it is, honestly.
It's a anything because before you have Amazing Fantasy, then you have Spider-Man, whoever else in there with Spider-Man, and that one comic book,
right.
And that's because you like
there are 14 issues before that didn't have Spider-Man,
Yeah. So like you said, the kids had their allowance, so they bought that one book and get 5-6 stories inside of it. But nowadays, I think the closest we get in mainstream comics is the back issue. So it might be a Superman comic book, then in the back of it, it's going to be a Steel or Dr. Fate, or whoever in the back. But
which I dig. I'm glad they're going back to that. But it's weird. Not to badmouth the big two, because hopefully we all get paychecks from them one day. But like I'm catching up on Superman, and the ending of the major story arc was in the annual, so you had to pick up the annual to find out how the story ended. And then you're like, but then also DC does like their Pride and their voices, or no, Marvel does the voices. DC does Pride, and they'll do those anthologies. And DC does the holiday ones. But DC used to
those
have
are all that I could find. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
DC used to have their talent search anthology. I don't know if y'all remember that.
Mag Cave does that now, but it's not that common. And I think that like Image is great. What they do, the what are they, like $1 where you can get the first issue of like every single popular book from Image. You can get them for $1, and it's just like a reprint of the first issue. And I think those probably sell really well, because people, like you were saying, like that every comic could be somebody's first comic, and a lot of the stuff that keeps you out of the comic book store is, I don't know where to start. There's 80 years.
That was Stan Lee's thing. He wants everybody pick up a Marvel comic book and be the first time, so they won't be that problem. And I don't know. I don't know when Stan Lee died, but I don't know. Well, not when he died. When his hand wasn't involved in Marvel Comics, I'll say that.
Right, when he became like a spokesperson.
Yeah, just the face of the movies.
Mascot.
Yeah. So because then I want to say when he took his hand away from Marvel, that's when the manga started popping off. And people start reading manga, then they're like, I don't know where to start reading Fantastic Four at. Because beginning of the books, you're not getting that whole, oh, hi, I'm Peter Parker, I'm Spider-Man, I got bit by a spider, but now I'm fighting Venom. You don't get that in the books no more. You just, boom, right into the story. You don't know who this person is, who that person is.
Yeah.
You know, I think
And then
that's
they
where
have
people
the
get stuck.
reboots, like Lance, you were saying, like you weren't really into Scott's New 52 stuff, and it's like Scott didn't want to, like he talks about this a lot, how he had his whole story fleshed out, and then DC was like, actually, we're going to reboot everything, and he was like, I'm not going to do, like, what the hell? Like he was really mad. He like got into an argument with the editor about it and was like, my whole story depends on there being a backstory to Batman, and this being like a new, like I think every writer like comes into their launch on something like Fantastic Four or like Ultimate Spider-Man or something like that, and or like I'm really into I love Tom King. I know some people hate him, but I love him. His Wonder Woman stuff right now, like when a writer starts on a series, that's a good place to start, because that's their, I'm going to launch into this, and I'm going to branch out of whatever somebody else was doing. But then if you only catch on 3 issues in and you can't find the first 2, you're kind of at a loss. So
I do appreciate the recap page that they do now, or Marvel does, and all their stuff. But I love Tom King, but he reads so much better in a trade than monthlies. But I still pick up the monthlies to support. But does the anthology, like, I know Scott wrote an intro for it, right? Maybe
he's writing an intro for it. Yeah, we haven't read it yet, so it might be
now,
totally.
I heard Lance say said previously this might be a quarterly thing. So then you also said with him as well that you don't want to be like so many zombie stories in it. So like or like, so it's his story. So let's say his story didn't quite end or did end. Now in issue 3, can I pick up on his story, or it'd be a totally different story that he's gonna write?
Yeah, we don't really have any hard and fast rules about that. I think if it's like, I think the one thing is we want them to be self-contained. So if somebody picks up issue 4 and they see kind of another installment in the story that Lance is telling, it should still feel maybe self-contained. Like you don't need to go track down the first issue to make the 4th issue make sense. That's one thing that would probably, we haven't really talked about that specifically, but that would probably bug me a little bit. But I don't think we have like any hard and fast rules about it. Like we had someone submit a story that's a continuation of a story that they started in one of the bigger volumes, and we haven't dismissed that idea either. Like we're just we're kind of like a little loose with that, because we want everyone in the class to have the opportunity to tell the story that they want to tell. We want to be like a very supportive offshoot of the class in that way. Like whatever story it is you have in your head that you want to see on the page, we want to help you make that story. And if it's a continuation of something you've already started, or it's a zombie story, or an anthropomorphic dinosaurs jumping through dimensions story, or a time travel story, or a broad comedy, or experimental
romance,
in terms of like how it is, but like anything, so we just wanted variety. And so in this first issue, we've got like, there's one that's kind of just a spooky fairy tale, and there's one that's kind of just a short, it's sort of like, what's the word I want to use? It's not a fairy tale. It's like a short story with like a really like hard lesson.
A fable?
Yeah, like a fable, exactly. Like that. And so they're all over the map. And there's one that's clearly the beginning of a much longer story. Like Lance was saying, his story could pick up, it could go on, it could be an ongoing series. It could be the beginning of like, a run that could be 5 issues and then it's over, or however many issues Lance wants to write. It could be self-contained and that's it. There is one story that feels very much like the beginning. The Widowmaker feels like the beginning of a tale. Like it's the first steps of a longer story. And maybe Nick won't tell the rest of that story in the Cloak Room. Maybe he'll publish a comic series about it down the road and use this issue to
like
sell
the
it.
end of a long story too, like it ends.
True.
It's like it's kind of the middle point where it's like things shift. And I think that
Right.
he took that from the lesson with Scott of where to kind of put your characters in that three act structure when you're writing a short story. But that's a whole other topic. Yeah.
Well,
All right.
I mean, I look at it kind of like, I mean, I think Image used to do them back in the day. I know Cartoon Network back in the early '90s. This is like where Seth MacFarlane got started. They had the What a Cartoon Show, where it's just
Yeah,
pitches,
Yeah.
cartoon.
like these little 2 to 10 story pitches. Like, hopefully, yeah, we all go on to make series. That I mean, that's that as a creator and a reader of anthologies. Like, I I expect to see, if these stories continue, I expect it to like continue in a series, like a fleshed out
Yeah.
story elsewhere. I mean,
It's but yeah, it's we're showing creators that as many as possible that if their story like if somebody else from a bigger publisher and wants to pick up that story, like it's totally yours, Lance. Like you own that. You can take that to whoever. If somebody's like, hey, you want to continue this in a do you want to write 7 issues? Then that's like that would be amazing for us. That's the dream. Yeah.
Well, I'll ask you like 2 more questions, then I'm gonna end the show or whatnot. But my first question is, Jerry, since this is under your umbrella, let's say Lance story pops off. At this anthology, he is the Spider-Man from this anthology. Could he publish under you, since this can't say umbrella, or how would that work out for the people?
So we Veronica and I and Thorny Comics, the company that is the the publisher of name on the thing, which is also I own. We're not retaining any of the IP. So if Lance does this story and then wants to take his short story and go to Scout Comics or Dark Horse and pitch it, or to somebody else, the Image or whoever, and wants to go publish it at a big publisher, I wish him all the best, all the luck in the world, and I hope he can do that. Like I'm not set up financially to be like, Lance, let me cut you a big check and let's make the story. I'm not like set up like that. It's like it's me in this room. Like this is pretty much the whole operation here.
In the basement.
Yeah, exactly. Like
look at Amazon.
Yeah. But I do hope I'm publishing my own books too through Thorny Comics that I write, and I hope that as I grow this into a real company, I hope that the people that we're working with through this project will come and want to pitch things to me, and I would love to do like a Suicide by Zombie series. That'd be amazing. And it'd be great to look back on having done this and how we met and be like, what a great story. Scott kind of accidentally put us all together, and we're all now successful writers and editors and publishers because of it.
On that point, like didn't James Tynan start in Scott's class, like as a student of Scott, and there are a few other people he mentioned too who were his students and are now like some of the best-selling writers on the shelf. He loves teaching, and I think he's sent out newsletters that are like literally just like, yo, everybody should be connecting, and this group of students that are listening to this right now, there's no difference between like us and the generation of writers that I came up with, and then who were students of me at like I don't know where he taught. Was it like Columbia or something like that? NYU? I don't know. Beats me, but yeah,
bad
like
students.
yeah. So he taught like a short story like prose class or something. Like he taught for a long time, I think, and he loves teaching. So, but yeah. So I mean, if it pops off, then we have a collector's item on our hands, and maybe we'll get you to sign something, and be really proud of you, and be like, that's great. So proud of you.
There's a lot of great stories though in this volume. Like I'm just the one that could show up on the call, but there's so many great stories, and I think it's funny you mentioned that because we've been doing press for this all week. I've been doing press for this and another thing all week, and after our last one, I was like, I wonder if they'd want to edit some other stuff and take a fee, and I don't know, but that's a discussion for another time. But yeah, I I mean,
You get paid? No.
You guys are getting paid? No, yeah. It's tax season, and my wife is like, "How much did you spend making comics? How much did you make making comics?" Yeah, no, she's super supportive. I love her. But I think it's, the indie vibe and the Kickstarter vibe right now is where it's at. I love the big two. I think the 10-year-old in me would love to have a Marvel paycheck, like DC paycheck, but I think the pulse of comic readers right now is on Kickstarter, is like y'all mentioned, is in these anthologies. And so, whatever blows up, I mean, I think blowing up is subjective, because there are books on Kickstarter that outsell Marvel. There's books on Kickstarter that outsell DC and Image and everybody. So I think, what they're doing, what we're doing is really cool. And wherever the stories go, no matter who has it, I think we'll always, down here we have, Dance with Who Brought You. And I think that's, we're such a close community that I think that no matter what happens, we'll dance with who brought us, and always, other people say rising tide stuff, but we'll always kind of stick together, and no matter what, I think.
Cool. And speaking of pitches, what are some of the stories in this anthology so when the Kickstarter goes live, or later on they want to get this volume after the Kickstarter's over, some stories they can really see that I want to read this, see what's going on there.
Yeah, well, so the first one obviously is Lance, and Lance's story is Suicide by Zombie, which he talked about already earlier. There's one called God of Science, which is about an explorer who is the first human explorer who pierces the veil and finds himself in what he hopes is the afterlife, and immediately gets into an argument with the first god he bumps into there. He's got a bone to pick with whatever god he finds there. That's a fun story. One's called The Widowmaker by Nick Fryer, and that is about a woman who's married to the sort of leader of a biker king, and she kind of ascends to the throne by removing the thing that's kind of been ruining the gang for a while, which is her husband. And that's kind of a fun story. What else? We have Routine, which is about it's kind of a stalker story, and there's kind of a twist ending there that's a lot of fun. It's very uncomfortable. It's written by thriller, creepy thriller kind of thing. Written by Evan Von Doom. We have Rob Malone's story, which is Survival of the Fittest. It's about a planet where the dinosaurs never went extinct, so they evolved over the course of millions of years, and now they wear clothes. They kind of look like the dinosaurs from remember the old sitcom Dinosaurs. It's kind of like that kind of a world where the technology is still very Stone Age, but there's one guy, this one dinosaur who has figured out interdimensional travel, and he's been going into other dimensions and stealing human scientists and kind of bringing their technology to the dinosaur world so that he can conquer. So like they think he invented the light bulb, for example, things like that, which is very cool and like a ton of fun.
It's really neat.
It's like, yeah, it's just like
it takes place in Washington, D.C., which is like, I was like, that's immediately, I love that.
Yeah.
And Rob like works in Capitol Hill, and like that's his domain, so he's like very familiar with the buildings, and then like turning that into like the art process was really dope for that.
Right.
Yeah. And then keep going, Jerry.
Sure. And then we have The Shortcut, which was written by Shane Cruz. And that's about a young woman who has nyctophobia, which is a fear of the dark. And she follows a boy that she likes into a dark shortcut that, is sort of a scary experience for everybody involved by the end of that story. And what do I feel like I'm missing one? It's Computer Love. Computer Love by Chris Gutierrez, which is about a man who has been having an affair with an AI woman. And he has an implant in his brain that allows him to connect directly with this AI universe, and he's been having an affair with an AI woman. His wife knows about it, and so he's trying to end the affair before it ruins his real life relationship. And it again also has kind of like a really kind of like sci-fi twist ending there. And that's another one that could be the beginning of a longer story. Yeah.
Cool. All right. They all sound pretty interesting. So what they need to type in to find this project, to support y'all, get it running, and get it published and all that stuff.
So it's on Kickstarter now. It's it'll be live until February 20. Oh no, it's in March, right? We're going to March 13th on this
March
one.
12th?
Yeah, 12th,
Yeah,
13th,
it goes
yeah.
till March 12th. Yeah. So it's live on Kickstarter now. As we're recording this in mid-February, and it is we're a few $100s away from backing. And actually,
Are
there's a new add-on. Yeah, we're at almost 2,500. We need another $500 to get there. And I am adding tonight a new add-on feature where Scott's going to sign a certain number of copies of the book for people. So that'll be available as an add-on for anyone who wants to dig a little deeper into their pockets.
If you're hypothetical, if you were the first backer, how hard is it to add that on? Like,
I mean,
button.
Yeah.
I'm sure we could figure that out for you, Lance. Like, yeah.
But
If you want that, we can get you that.
yeah, that's cool. That's cool. And that's what I'm trying to
Yeah,
thought.
so just go on Kickstarter, type in Cloak Room, Scott Synder. It'll probably come up if you type in Scott Synder or the Cloak Room, Thorny Comics, any of that. Yeah.
project we love, the project they love.
Yeah, it is.
It just hit Project We Love
Front page
status yesterday. We launched it a few days ago, so we're only about 4 days into the campaign, 3 days into the campaign, and it hit a
Launched
Project
on
We
the
Love yesterday.
13th,
So
yeah.
it's doing very well.
All right. And if people want to join your class, what they type in to join your class?
Look up the Our Best Jacket substack, which is the one that's Scott's class, and there's a
$7
free
a
newsletter. Yeah, there's a free newsletter version of it. There's a paywall where you get more information, more access. Scott does like a weekly thing. Actually, it's funny, as we're having the conversation right now, the weekly
Just
newsletter
released one,
came
yeah.
out. It's him doing a deep dive into the process of editing and what's kind of cool and great about it and what people don't realize about it. It's like everything we just talked about. So it's all there. And then I believe that the way it works is if you join the Substack at the $7 a month level, you can actually go back and listen to all the back catalog of classes. So he's had on James Tynan, Kyle Higgins, Josh Williamson, like the legendary editor Will Dennis, which we based our pitch document that we asked all the writers to submit on the pitch document that Will supplied in that class. We actually built it around that. So we've taken direct things from the class and applying it to the process of making this book. But he's had a ton of people on, and there are more people coming, in the future. He's doing things that are more specific now, about like how to craft a horror story, how to craft, a mystery and things like that.
And he uses work from people in the class too. Like he'll pull a Marvel DC image book, but then he'll use like one of our stories also, and it's really cool. It's worth it. Well worth a couple of bucks a month. I mean, that's a hamburger, not even a hamburger anymore.
Yeah, cool. And thanks for y'all coming on. Thanks for giving everybody information. And if you want people to follow y'all, we go clockwise, and y'all give y'all your hashtags or your @ symbols where they can follow you at.
I'm Jerry Carita. You can follow all my comic book stuff at Thorny Comics. I think on my screen I'm clockwise from you. I'm right. You're at like 7:00 for me. I'm at like 10:00. Veronica's over there at 2:00. It's in this direction for me. So Jerry Carita. I'm at Jerry Carita everywhere personally, but my comic book stuff is all at Thorny Comics. I'm the only Thorny Comics. I'm on Instagram. I'm on Twitter. And I'm the only Thorny Comics on Facebook. Those are the places where I mostly am hanging out. Instagram and Facebook are the big ones.
Yeah. If you follow at the Cloak Room, or is it at Cloak Room Comics?
I think it's Cloak Room Comics.
Yeah.
At Cloak Room Comics. That's where I have no personal brand. Just if you want to see pictures of me and my friends' dogs, like, probably don't want to see that anyway. So yeah, at Cloak Room Comics, and it'll have links there to other things. It's on Instagram, on Twitter, on everything.
It's the Cloak Room Comics.
At the Cloak Room Comics.
The Cloak Room Comics. There it is.
Yeah.
As for me, if you at the top of the show we mentioned books on to purchase on Amazon, just Lance Stanford over here. You can look that up. Everywhere else, I'm the Night Nerd. All social media. I'm not active on all social media, but that handle is on all social media and podcast catchers and everything like that. You can find me there. the Night Nerd.
All right, cool. And once again, thanks for coming on. I enjoyed y'all.
Thank you so much. This was so
Thanks,
super
Specks.
fun.
Really appreciate it.